We are okay. All right, everybody. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It's a beautiful evening. It's really a testament to how much all you people care to come out here tonight because it's so nice out. In fact, it's so nice out. I think let's just call this meeting off. Y'all think I'm kidding? Okay, April Fool. Okay, so with that, will everyone please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance as we get going.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First here, we have a couple of updates here. First is April asked the mayor, I hope everybody will join me and Councilwoman Barbara Hamburg on April 15th, tax day, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Silver Springs Baptist Church for an open discussion about all things Pendleton. Of course, as everybody knows, this is a big weekend. It's Spring Jubilee. We're looking forward to attending that. Our next call meeting for council to discuss the fiscal year 2026 budget is scheduled for 5:30 p.m. on April 16th, 2025. And the state of Pendleton saved the date for that. It is for the Clemson Area Chamber's annual State of Pendleton on May the 13th, 5:30 p.m. It'll be held at Tri-County Technical College again. And also, this is something else I thought of here. Along with council updates, since we call it council updates, are there any updates that council may have for us? I never asked that before, but I thought, You
got to tell us beforehand.
But maybe it's something you're thinking of or want to mention. So I'm open up that. If there is anything, all right, that's fine. Nobody has to make any updates.
What's the time for the April 16th meeting?
April 16th meeting.
Budget meeting.
5:30.
That's here. And the state of Pendleton is what time at Tri-County?
5:30.
What date?
May the 13th.
It is the taste of Pendleton. And I did talk to the people at the chamber, and they're still looking for restaurants that would participate in the taste of Pendleton.
And that is a good update. There's an update. That's great. Thank you, Lynn.
We also got a community breakfast Saturday, right? What does anybody have the time on that?
That's over at the center.
Yeah.
Big community center.
7 till 11.
Yeah, another one. All right. Anybody else? Okay, well, great. Thank you, folks. Next, we'll move on to approval of minutes. Hopefully, council's had a chance to look at the minutes, and having said that, are there any changes that need to be made, or are we to pass them as presented? Is there a motion?
Motion to pass the minutes as presented.
Okay, have a motion.
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Next, we have public comments. 3-minute time limit as usual. Must be a resident, a business owner, or a town property owner to speak in public comments. We'd like for you to come up and address the council and give us your name and your address, even though we may know who you are, just so we'll have it on our record. Having said all that, if there's anyone that would love to come up and make a comment, and I see Nancy looking this way, so come on up, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy Von Meyer, 404 Westminster Drive. I co-chair the Keep Pendleton Beautiful with Melissa Powell. And I have we wrote a little report on the thing we did on Saturday. We had we had 77 people, so thank you to Lindsay, our outreach coordinator. She reached out to Arthrex, which got us a bunch more people than we normally get. I was prepared for 30, not 77. So we ran out of almost everything. We ran out of vests, ran out of grabbers, ran out of bags. We picked up 140 bags. And we had some lessons learned. I learned that the places in Pendleton that I know, they don't know. So when there's a group of kids standing around, I say, go to Mill Hill to pick up litter. They don't know where that is. They don't know where Excelsior Mill Road is. So They managed to get 140 bags, but didn't get to Mill Hill. I don't know how they did that, but they did it. The other thing we discovered is that people must drink Red Bull on the way to work, because that's out the window on the driver's side. And then they must drink Fireball on going home, because that's out the driver's side going home. One thing I would suggest that we think about in the future in terms of a lesson learned is, besides us being more prepared, and to have a town person go with every volunteer so that they can learn the town by doing the litter pickup, and to make it fun, and maybe work with some of our businesses to help sponsor some after litter pickup event. We might want to think about talking to the developers about having a roller cart on site, because any construction site, the people that work there seem to use our streets as a trash can. And if we could encourage the developers to put the things in the trash cans on the site. I talked to a guy today at Shiny Mill, and he said, well, I said, I'll give you all the bags and the grabbers and the gloves that you want to help your workers pick up their litter. That, here's the supplies. He said, well, if we did that today, it would just be dirty tomorrow. I said, so then there's no point in vacuuming. There's no point in washing your car. There's no point in washing the dog. Yeah, I think you lost my point on that. But the idea was that if we had some kind of a trash can, it may help. So anyway, I thought it was really successful, and I wanted to thank, again, our event coordinator for reaching out. Lindsay Watney for reaching out to the Arthrex people, and I hope that we can reach out similarly to Milliken and Michelin in the future. So thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else like to make a comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on. We have some reports. We have the police department report first. We have Chief Robert Crosby here for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening. Make this kind of brief, but the mayor has granted me a few extra minutes today, and I will explain why in a few. So last month, we answered over 336 calls for service, took 8 reports, cleared 4 of those with arrest, wrote 63 warning tickets and 12 state citations. Of note, though, the Pendleton Fire Department, and I got exactly what you wanted this time, Barbara, 38 total calls for service in the month of March for the fire department. And I have that if you would like that just to have, so you can see where it's at if you would like a copy of this report.
Please, I get it later.
Okay, awesome. So that takes care of the fire department. On March 7th, officers responded to an overdose at the QT in town. Officers Murray, Bishop, and Westcott were able to revive the patient by utilizing Narcan as well as other life-saving measures, and brought the patient out of her overdose, thus saving her life. Now, I always like to recognize and reward those that, in the police department that do a great job. But this one was a little bit different because we had to wait 16 minutes on EMS to get there. So it's 5 minutes in between Narcan doses. So one was in the nostril, waited 5 minutes, continued life-saving efforts, another dose. And after that second dose, the ETA given to me by dispatch was 11 minutes. Now I bring that up to kind of roll into what I'd heard at the last meeting of the mayor, and I spoke to the mayor about last week about having a few minutes, because I don't think the citizens kind of understand how busy we are. You all hear it at budget time, how many calls for service we get in a year and stuff like that. So it's probably a failure on my part not to inform the everybody that lives here. So Frank has given me a few minutes to do that. But the 11-minute, 16-minute ETA and time frame on EMS just is why we kind of do what we do, and why we respond to so many incidents that are not law enforcement related. And I'll give you an example that I heard on the radio, and I was telling Steve about it. There was an incident somewhere else in this county where a cardiac arrest was in progress. Dispatch gave the information to the local municipal officer, and immediately that officer acknowledged the thing, and then 10 seconds later pulled over a car. Now, that's not the kind of police department we obviously want to have here in Pendleton. Through everything that you grant us as council, and the guidance and the direction that you provide, and then pushing it down to the troops on the line, we want to make sure that the officers that work here understand that which one's more important to the residents here. Is it saving somebody's family member from a cardiac event, or stopping a car for speeding? I think we all know or should know the answer. And I think that it's important that the residents here know that, the 8 officers that work here now, that they understand, and they were hired, and they fully understand and are fully aware that that is their responsibility as well. That, tickets can be written, arrests can be made, but, priority for this town is life-saving and to benefit the community. So that was kind of March quickly. So to go back over really briefly, because I don't want to end up like Steve. So in 2024, for those that are watching on the YouTubes and here, the police department answered 5,364 calls for service. Of these, the police department, the 8 officers that currently work here, answered 79% of those. That was 42-43. The Anderson County Sheriff's Office answered 21% of those, for 1,121 total. So the Sheriff's Office, again, for those that are watching, are answering pretty much 20% of the calls for service currently, due to, to the staffing and the way we're built here. But inside that, we also answered, the fire department with 105 calls for last year, and we assisted EMS with 339 calls for service. So that's, almost one a day, and that's with us only taking, 79% of the calls for service in town. Because the sheriff's office, if they have a medical call, they will not come because that's just not their, they're not dispatched to those kind of medical calls inside the town. So again, for those that don't know, it is a lot. We did have a busy year kind of as well. Again, we had 17 violent crimes. Obviously there was 1 homicide, which was cleared by arrest, still pending trial and everything. We actually have some stuff next week about that. Several weapons violations. We did work in assist with EMS and fire and work 9 death investigations, which does take up a lot of time. Again, our shop at the cop, as I talked about, over $10,000 was collected for that. One of the biggest challenges, and I failed to kind of point this out, is our communication center with the Anderson County Sheriff's Office. So when someone calls 911 here, the Anderson County Sheriff's Office has several pods that they have to answer for: EMS, fire, small towns, the main Sheriff's Office channels, and so forth. We do get the rookies, so to speak. And everybody has to start somewhere. Everybody has to start as a council member, has to start as a police officer, everybody has to start as a planner, but we all have to start somewhere. But the difference with our talk group and getting the information, I don't think the citizens really understand, is we have to rely on a lot more technology here than, say, the sheriff's office, because of the level of training that our dispatchers, again, because they're brand new, they're trying to handle 7 municipalities as opposed to the 2 dispatchers that are assigned to the sheriff's office, main channels 1 and 2. They have 2 of those, but they're the most senior. So you work your way up, you ended up at the sheriff's office pod, taking calls and all that other stuff. So we do rely on a lot of technology and a lot of the stuff and equipment that's in our vehicles to utilize those services to make sure that we're safe, the citizens safe, and we're doing the best thing for the town. So I appreciate the mayor for letting me give a quick review, and that's about all I have. I'll answer any questions.
Can you explain the fire that was on 76? Can you give us
Which fire on 76?
the one that happened recently?
Seaborn.
Yes, that one.
I will have to defer that answer. That happened on a Saturday, so we did not respond to that. I know several dwelling structures were damaged, Chief. 7 structures were damaged. It was started by just an accidental,
The guy was out grilling, lifted his hood up on the grill, wind come through, blew an ember out, caught the grass on fire. The wind was blowing so heavily, set the grass on fire. It quickly spread to 7 residents. There's a couple, maybe 3 or 4 that's damaged pretty heavily with fire. I talked to the Serpro people down there day before yesterday. They've already cleaned 1 unit, and they're working on another unit down there. So not sure how many ended up with smoke damage on the inside. I talked with Jeff, and I know that Jeff went by and talked to some people down there also.
Thank you.
Rather come out of
No, I
the
just-
fire
I-
chief's
I-
mouth than
Well, true, but I just felt that that is something that the people here needed to hear.
Well,
And because I've been saying all along, all it takes is one. You know, we were lucky it was contained with 7 houses. Anything out there, and not only there, but it can happen in any of the developments, even within town, because I know when I was on my walk for campaign, the lady was talking about her house had burned, she rebuilt, and that had the wind switched. She said the fireman said had the wind switched, you know, every single house over here. I don't think people realize how vulnerable we are when it comes to our fire.
well, I agree with that. We assisted fire on one, where was the one last week? It was the one on Grand Oak. No, we went to one last week.
Uh-huh.
I feel like, something sparked something and burnt a yard and a half in like 3 minutes. If it wasn't have been for a neighbor who came out with his hose pipe because the couple that owned the residence took a walk. Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah. They had taken a walk and just like that, but lucky a neighbor saw it and, they were able to come out there and put further water on it. But, what if that neighbor wouldn't have been there
Right.
and they were out walking? I mean, that'd have been at least 2 structures that have been burnt, before the fire department got there, because we all know, they're volunteer, so they get there as soon as they can get there.
That's true.
Yeah, I know that there was a young mother over there that had a newborn and a 4-year-old, and she didn't have air conditioning. But the people I talked to over there were all complimentary about you guys in the fire department and how quick you got there and how effective you were in getting it out.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have, unless anybody has anything else.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a report from the planning department. We have Dave Poston, planner, to give that report.
Mr. Mayor, Council, good evening. Good to be here on April Fool's Day. During the month of March, planning was a little busy. We issued 39 permits. The following is a breakdown of those permits. We issued 16 new home permits. Those new homes are still going through the Champions Village area of town. We also issued 4 permits for single-family homes behind the Advanced Auto Parts, and we issued the permits for the 3 remaining townhome sites across from the post office. So they're working on those currently. We issued 4 new roof permits, 2 exterior remodels, 3 interior remodels, 2 new accessory structures, 1 demolition permit, 2 new swimming pools, 2 new signs, and 7 other permits that included electrical, mechanical grading, and building additions. During code enforcement answered 6 complaints. They identified 1 contractor working in town without a permit or a license, which resulted in $47 being collected in business license and $101.50 being collected in permit fees. Owen is doing a great job in code enforcement. He's picking up on things, and I think he's having a really good time. He's doing a really good job. During the month of March, staff did receive the first draft of the UDO back. Staff took and spent a lot of time going through that document. I went through it word for word, and I was trying to pick and see how it differed from our current zoning ordinance. I was able to go through that, and I've created a summary sheet. What we did was we went back and we wanted to make sure that we heard the comments and the concerns from the steering committee that was involved in this draft or for UDO. We wanted to make sure that what we heard from them was included in the draft UDO. If it was not included in the UDO, why it was not, and if it was needed to be looked at again. That summary sheet is about 15 pages long. I have sent that summary sheet back to MRB Group. I wanted them to review my comments to make sure that I interpreted their comments right. Once we get their comments back from the summary sheet, then we plan on packaging all that together and getting that information to the steering committee so that the steering committee can review it and then hopefully get through the approval process. Still got a long way to go with that, but we're really starting to truck down that road to get things accomplished. It's a big document. I think we spent 60 hours just dedicated to reviewing it in March. So we spent a lot of time, but I think we're really gaining on it. And I think it's really going to help us and really push us to what the future of Pendleton should be. Also, during the month of March, we met with a developer who was looking at about 45 acres on the other side of East Queen Street, just outside the town limits. It is contiguous to our TIF district, but it is currently outside of this. He was asking questions about, what is annexation? How does annexation works? How does zoning work? He's interested in possibly coming into town limits if he does purchase that area. We also attended the leadership training on March the 7th. We always have a good time with Mary Beth. She sits down with us and tries to get us straight, and we have a good time talking with her, and she's like our mental health guidance there, so we enjoy talking to her. On March 27th, we assisted the Planning Commission with a work session. They have two developments that are coming up. One of them's coming up on their April 10th meeting. One of them is a group development, commercial development off of 76 in Hillendale area, and they also have one that they proposed for the Village of Town Creek. That's that PUD that's over there behind the apartments over there. So the Village of Town Creek, that we're still working through that. The commission asked a bunch of good questions. They gave us some suggestions. They're going to go back and work through that and hopefully see if they submit back to us. They also went through the commercial group development, had some really good comments, and I think the developer's going to listen to things they said. They will be getting that for a review at their meeting this month. And then the Village of Town Creek, we'll see what they decide to do after we get to that process. And then we're having the planning commission meeting on April the 10th. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor, unless you have any questions for me. I try to make it short.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hearing about some downturns. I see we've got 16 new homes. How many have we had for the first quarter? Can you know?
I do not have the first quarter numbers. I can tell you that this is the most we've done this year so far. January was kind of slow. February was really, really slow. March picked up pretty well, but I don't have that exact number.
Okay.
I'll be glad to get it for you, though.
All right, that'd be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So the commercial plan,
Yes, ma'am.
what does that all entail?
So it is the plans that are out in the hallway, and it's just basically it's 8 commercial offices. And what he's looking at, the gentleman that owns the property is a contractor. He builds houses. He wants to use one of the buildings for his office, but then he has an idea of renting the other ones out to professional lawyers, whatever, something that fits in that area. He has told me his goal is not to create a strip mall. He is doing individual buildings for professional offices. So that's what they'll be getting this month.
So that's near Erica's?
It's right across from Erica's. On the same side of the road, that's that grassy area off 76. So if you're looking at Erica's, it's to the right.
What's Erica's?
The restaurant right there at the food line. Used to be Rick's Pizza.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to navigate
Yes, ma'am.
traffic.
So it's right next to the food line in Hillendale area.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Good pizza.
All right, one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
You've got on here on March the 28th, you attended a meeting on the Pendleton Oil Mill Small Area Plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are we with that?
So the developer submitted some new designs to GMC based on comments that we received from the community. We wanted to meet with them and just see where they were with that. We're trying to get to where we can have some more public comments. We really wanted to see what and how the new thoughts that he had fit in with what our plan was so that we can get that out. We're still trying to get a site plan together, but that we just wanted to see what he was suggesting and how it worked with the town.
But it's nice to know that he is listening.
So
it's
far,
not
yes, ma'am.
bulldozing over and doing what I want, but he is, within reason.
Yes, ma'am.
taking
Seems to be,
into
yes, ma'am.
Consideration other people's
Yes, ma'am.
needs.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. All right, next we have the administrator's report. Steve Miller.
We don't have the billing info yet, at least I didn't have it today. But for the month of March, we rented the depot building twice and Barrett's Place 5 times. A couple good information about business license. We collected last month in March, $91,830.38 in business license. Roughly 50,000 of that is from construction, or what you'll hear is called itinerant businesses, meaning they're not brick and mortar under state law. 33,000 of that is just from one project. The rest with the business license renewals that are due by the end of April, brick and mortar of that 91,000 was about 41,000. And we'll get some more in next month, but that number's probably going to get you're probably gonna look for that number, maybe to get about 70, maybe into 80,000 at the most. We budgeted 130,000, so we are at 138 right now, which is good because we've exceeded the budget. And then you're going to see the business license probably significantly drop off. Some of those itinerant businesses that cross business license years are having to pay to re-up their business license going into the next year. And that's really what that 33,000 was coming back into us. Transactions for the month, we processed 1,044 transactions, total $2,379,866, including the Clemson-Anderson wastewater treatment plant upgrades. We had a total of 1,288 online transactions for $178,066. 204 of these were from the open forums on the website, totaling $84,830. Clemson Community Care assisted one customer in debt set off, returned to us $865 in utility bills that were in arrears. Central Road Pump Stations, you had the bid approvals on here tonight. We opened those March 3rd. The total cost was $160,000. We have our SRF principal forgiveness in that, along with our bond money that we've already taken out. Wastewater treatment plant, I won't read through all those numbers, but you can kind of see where we're at financially with it. We are still around 500 days left in construction. We have last month met several times with the $5.3 million grant that was Senator Graham earmarked for us in the fiscal year 23 federal government budget. And as you know, we had started going down a process where the intent was for that 5.3 to go into our waste treatment plant to buy the equipment we had to pre-order for it. And before we released the RFP and signed our guaranteed maximum price to contractor, Region 4 came back and said, you're not allowed to do that. We have taken this all the way up. It's too late for us to go back and buy the equipment. We included it in our bond financing and everything else. They came back to us. We have been sending in requests. They came back to us a couple months ago and said, when are y'all buying your equipment? And we said, y'all told us we couldn't buy the equipment. And so it has been going downhill since then. So we actually have Senator Graham's chief of staff and legal counsel involved in this, along with several people from Washington that we've been meeting with, because we have to expense, and we had this covered when we did our bond, and this isn't all our money, but we have to 5.3, we need to do about $7 million worth of work, and we have the work we need to do. We have a septic reception facility at the waste treatment plant that will generate revenue back to pay for the plant. And we have line rehabilitation coming out of the plant that would benefit everybody, along with some meter installations for I&I monitoring. But we need to spend about, as a group, we need to spend about $400,000 on engineering to do all this. And we have told the EPA we are not spending $400,000 until we know y'all want to approve our project. So we had a big meeting last week with several people from Washington, the office director of Region 4, a lot of Senator Graham's office and Sherry Briggs' office, with everybody that's local about this, trying to get to it. And so we are still waiting on their response from that meeting. That's what's going on with $5.3 million. Winston Street, North Mechanic, we opened the bid on March 20th. The bids came in at $966,000. We had set aside in fund balance, the biggest thing for council is this is part of a $500,000 grant. We had $429,000 left from CDBG. We have to provide $523,000. We had set aside $660,000 because this is a two-part process in the neighborhood revitalization. So you should have been able to to get another 500,000, possibly $1 million if they up that to in the next round of grants. But to match this grant, we'll have to put in 528,800. Then we have to do the security cameras and traffic monitoring. That was part of the grant and what they requested down there, and you can see those numbers in there. Then we have what we think is going to be about a $20,000 prepayment to do if we decide to prepay. If not, then our contract on the lights is going to go up. And you know, that may be what we end up doing, is increasing our contract on the decorative lights. And then our $97,000 in contingencies, but that takes us from Queen Street to Mechanic Street with a sidewalk and a speed table in there to slow the speeds, and then all the pan, tilt, zoom cameras and radar signs in the area for traffic monitoring. West House Extension, they've got the first layer of asphalt in there. We're really only waiting for Duke Energy left. That's the last people to have to move. We're trying to get them to go ahead and get up there because we can actually open up Weaver Way to start with. Town Hall IPRB, we have these projects tentatively budgeted. You can see the numbers that we've worked through with the budget. There is $420,000 going to Veterans Park, $120,000 of that comes from hospitality and accommodations, and $250,000 going to Town Hall. We did receive last week from Senator Cash's office that he is going to request $100,000 go into Barrett's Place and Trotter's Trail. We will not know that probably until June, if it makes it. We have reached out to Mosley and told them the amount of scope that we're looking at so they can start working. And we've paid for the manufacturer, and they came about 2 weeks ago and went through Barrett's Place, and they're doing an assessment on the structure there to see what has to be repaired to the actual structure there. They have changed construction type materials, so it's a lot less wood. It's a lot more Avantech, Trex, that kind of style. So that may be something we have to look at. The TIF district, we are still struggling with the auditor. The last week we got an Excel file. Owen helped me go through it and pull out the non-taxable properties, and then we refigured it with Brad Love, our attorney, and Amy Vitzer and Jordan Kaiser. We still can't get to what they're saying based on what we're seeing. And they've got to produce the right numbers for us. We can't go take a bond out with
I guess.
And so we have gone to the finance director over here, although the auditor doesn't answer to her. Brad, we have paid for our attorney to sit with them and explain to them what we need. We have taken this sheet and gone back, and we have sent them some follow-up questions to see if they'll reproduce a sheet. We feel like we're getting closer because now we have some numbers matching, but the numbers aren't tying back together. You can see the other stuff. They've started engineering on Calhoun. They've been speaking with SCDOT about Queen Street. They've started some of their surveying down there and environmental field work on Calhoun Boulevard and Queen Street. Tommy and I met with Wes Cox on Monday about property acquisitions. The gentleman did respond back to Wes while we were there. We've had 3 meetings set up, and they have canceled each of the meetings. And so we're going to propose some other stuff to them and see if they respond to that. But they are still talking and reaching out to Wes, so that, that's still a good sign. The Greenway design, I met with Alliance. They have finished their topo. They plan on, we talked about some stream crossings and some other stuff. They're going to be moving to get to a 30% design, and then they're going to be looking to hold a public input session. We have at the top of actually at the top and the bottom, they have identified the alternate routes to see what properties are willing to let us go through there to make a connection to Queen Street and Cherry Street in the future. So those are two of the things that we're talking in the public meeting about, but they're also going to be talking about what does the overall look of the Greenway look like down there and what are some of the amenities. So I figure we'll probably be having that maybe around July or August and get some good feedback. The town of Central's annexation, they have postponed that. We have met with them several times. They have agreed to enter into a memorandum of understanding, which is like the first process in getting to an intergovernmental agreement that's binding. They do want the 17 acres. 17 acres is the last 17 acres we would have in our sewer service territory. But they have, if we can stop them there and bring them into the agreements that we have with Clemson, they won't be able to go around us, so to speak, or at least with not out talking to us. But Clemson at the same time has come back because they're interested in 91 acres. It's in our territory. It's right beside Nettles Park. There's a developer currently interested in it. Clemson would like to, well, there's about 12 things Clemson wants to do. They want to possibly buy it and use it for a TIF to build their public works and to build a workforce housing with Spartanburg County's housing authority. They may want to expand some of Nettles Park, but they're pretty sure they can't afford to do it all. I basically told them it just sounds like we need to sit down and y'all need to figure out what needs to be done before we relinquish any control, or maybe we partner with them on some stuff. So I would expect them to be coming back with requests back to us. And I don't know when that would be, but that is happening. Riverside Middle School, we talked about it last month. We submitted everything back on the grant. We have no clue where grants are right now. So that could be tomorrow. It could be 6 months from now that we hear something back. Brush and leaf, currently our 2012 knuckle boom went down with a bad radiator. 2007 leaf vac, we've had to send out of state to get the pony motor and the clutch looked at. Our people couldn't get it repaired. Clemson has let us borrow their leaf vac. We're running it right now. In fact, I think we're just running lease right now, trying to get caught back up. Along with our newest knuckle boom, because some of the piles are, we call them contaminated, but they have sticks and everything. We don't want to get Clemson's leaf vac destroyed too while we're running. We picked up all the yellow tags. We're working on the red tags to get them in compliance and picked up from the storm. And then if we can get our other knuckle boom on the road, we're going to be running both of them, picking up seasonal. A couple other things that we've got this afternoon. I asked them for an update. We've been cleaning sidewalks. We had $20,000 in the budget for sidewalks. We spent about $12,000 of it. We've cleaned about 3.34 miles. They cleaned some more today from Mechanic Street down around Maine. So they probably cleaned about 4 miles of it. They have about $7,000 more in the budget left to clean sidewalks, but they have gotten most of the core area of town, and they've gotten down at Riverside. So they've been on East Queen Street from Broad to Scott Drive, Riverside from Winston to the middle school, North Broad Street from East Queen to the AME Church, South Broad from East Queen to Mechanic Street, East Queen Street from Greenville Street to Standing Oaks, and then East Queen from Broad to Pendleton Elementary, and East Main from Buddy's Lot to Morton Farmhouse. And one last thing, we have a sinkhole on Macasa Street. And we finally got this one today too. So we've looked at it. It's a little bit bigger project than we anticipated it being. We've reached out to our engineers and just preparing council for this because the estimate right now from the engineers, so we asked them what we're looking at on cost at the moment, is about $32,000. And that's with a margin of error from 20% under that to 50% above that number. And as we look at it, we can get that number a little bit closer. But I know that's where you live, and you've probably seen the cones out there. So
I was wondering about that.
the pipe is broke underneath the road, and so the whole road's got to be cut up and redone.
Actually, that's where the dead bodies have been buried and they've decomposed. So,
Sounds about right.
Well, I've had lots of compliments on the sidewalk, so please pass that on to the guys. They've done an amazing job. People have been very pleased with that work and seen them shoveling a good bit of dirt, so we greatly appreciate it. I have a question about the greenway design. Is this a design that we're hoping to use town-wide?
I mean,
How's that gonna figure into what we're looking at tonight?
I mean, the specs will probably be fairly standard when you're looking at, what you want. Like, you'll probably want the same lighting across town to tie it to some of the other ends and odds and ends. This will be more of location and cross slopes, and then they will be able to lay out expected paths in these meetings that people can see. And then those connections where we have to get off of our property and acquire the rest of the easements, they'll have the different options in that. But they will produce out of this cross sections is what people's probably most interested in. So are you going to take, when you build a 16-foot, which they say is about the smallest right of way you're going to take, or are you going to take a larger right of way and you're going to plant trees and have other things down it? I think you'll have some of that conversation come out of here.
All right, and is this gonna connect Pendleton Elementary School all the way over to villages at Town Creek?
Yes, so the
Just
two,
to Queens, just to Cherry?
so they have to figure the route to, it's either going to end up Calhoun or Queen Street, whatever one of three routes is most digestible to everybody. I will say they want to go through the HOA property of Queens Mill and come out right across from the school. GMC, in looking at Queen Street, will be looking at a 12-foot multi-use path so that wherever the greenway comes out, essentially there'll be a greenway size sidewalk on Queen Street that will tie back, and it will tie all the way down to the school.
From the school, and then how far back into town? Or is
It
that
just
even
goes,
far?
you can just, the TIF can only pay to the edge of the TIF, which is just to the other side of Calhoun.
so what's their name?
To 1 4-foot sidewalk. So, or 3-foot side, I can't remember. One side we know probably cannot have a sidewalk, which is Alex's side where his house is, because of the drop off on the side, without moving the road a little bit.
But we could do some traffic calming in there and
Yes,
narrow the road and.
That's what they've been talking to SCDOT about. They went ahead and reached out about traffic calming and street trees and some raised intersections, some other stuff. So.
Thank
Anybody
And this may not be under your purview, but during David's presentation, and he mentioned that there was a person or business doing work without a permit or a license, and their fee was $47. Who decides the fees? Because I'm telling you right now, if I'm making more than $47, I don't care if y'all fine me. So I think we need to, what do we do? What determines $47 as opposed to, I don't know, $4,700?
I'll turn it over to our expert.
Is their gross receipts or what they're making on that job? That's what's determined.
Is that standard throughout the state, or is that just something with?
It is, and it's based on like what their class is to the rate class. So yes, it is. Ours might be a little low as maybe for the contractors, like for the building stuff, but,
It's standard. Okay. Well, standard needs to change.
Okay.
I had one question about the traffic monitoring on the Winston Street, North Mechanic. Do we know where those are going?
So that's chief.
We have an idea. I have a strip map of the area, the entire thing, and so we've just been kind of like putting push pins in where we think they would be most effective. And I have them in the office. I make a copy of it. I already got it laid.
All right,
Color coded.
I like the letters.
Letters.
So
Fits right into your thing.
how many, have we decided how many?
Currently, we have 7 traffic monitoring devices. That would be like PTZ cameras and stuff like that, as well as 2 speed signs, which is a recurring cost of approximately $24,500. The town's gonna have to,
Annually.
annually after the first year. So, we wanted to have as much coverage as we could and keep the cost low.
All right. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to our strategic plan update from our plan coordinator, Lynn Murphy.
Thank you. And we all met last Monday, the 24th. Spent a whole day working on our strategic plan. We started with listing all our accomplishments, and we created this wall of accomplishments. You can see up there. There are from all over town. There are some were done by this group, some were done by the staff, some were done by volunteers, some were done by businesses, and some are completions by neighbors. But all of these contribute to our growth and to our fiscal responsibility or well-being and to our community engagement. So we feel like it's necessary to include all of them in a collaborative and an informed discussion to make sure that we are planning and moving in the direction with everybody involved. And so that gets to, it drives our decisions toward the commitment to do the very best we can for the well-being of the town and its citizens. So that's one of our primary objectives. After we did that, in that review, we went to, our next step was to update the strategic plan executive summary. And the only big change, or the only change, was with the key vision element E from enhanced community connections. We went to built connections through services, places, transportation, and options. That was more originally kind of sounded like we were just doing relationships, and it really is more about other steps. Then all the teams gathered and set their goals and objectives and set a timeline for all of those things as you see these up. Do you have those?
I'm like, yeah, I'm looking at it. Sure. All right, got it.
All right. So these are the our objectives by team. They will show the goals by the time that we want them completed. I do see some beginning works things, but most of them are by the time of completion. And then we have our list of our team rosters. Those teams will meet on the schedule as posted on this. You have this page with all the team names and so I will continue to do the monthly updates, then we'll have the quarterly updates. We hope to have all of this posted on the website in the very near future so that you can access it whenever you would like. I've also asked that we have some hard copies of this executive summary made available, so if you want to come by here and pick up those.
Now, we've been doing this for a year, right? or less than a year? September will be a year.
No, February was a year.
Okay. And did you change the leaders on each team?
We did not change leaders at this time.
Because she had informed me that that was something that would be, when I stepped down as leader, she said it was fine because they would want to change the leaders of each group, probably 2 months after I stepped down.
I think we did not have time to look at that, but every team can decide whether that leader wants to stay in place or if they want to elect someone different or someone different to serve. And we can talk about that.
Yeah, because we ran out of time completely.
Yeah.
It wasn't even.
And I will remind the leaders at the team lead meeting later this month. Any other questions?
That it? All right, well, thank you, Lynn. Appreciate it. All right, next we got a discussion item, which is consideration of discussion of annexation corridor. Town has received requests from the owner of parcel tax map number, and that tax map number does not come up on GIS. There's a typo right there. It is not 40222 4029. It is 40000 4029. And if you look at what's attached there, you really can't see that parcel. Can we go to GIS and look at it? Because you can't tell from looking at that where it is. That's my point about that.
That's good, that was on that. I guess you what you need.
I mean, you are looking at it, but it kind of follows T-side Drive and whatever. It's not that whole chunk over there. It's that bottom area kind of, if you can pull
You
that.
said that was not the tax number?
It is not.
That's the
What you
correct-
have at the top of the parcel sheet is the tax number.
I'm sorry. I don't even see it.
This is the tax, that's the accurate tax number.
Yeah, the 420004029, that is the correct tax map number. That really just doesn't show that. It doesn't, it just shows mixed in all the rest of it.
So is there any residences in there right now? I know there's T-side Drive, there's those houses, but they're not shown as on the.
Yeah, you can see it shows T-side Drive and Kenneth Court and all those streets in there and the other houses there.
But okay.
All right, there you go. Now you see that 4. All right, that there, yeah, so that shows you where the actual parcel is. The 420004029, that is the actual parcel. But actually, well, it
So
was.
did not want that to happen.
Yeah, it happens. No problem.
Because you know what I see on my screen is not what's up here. All right, is that better?
Yeah, it's probably better.
That's pretty good there. But yeah, to answer your question, that parcel doesn't have houses on it. That's what I want to be clear about, so everybody doesn't think it's that whole thing. But anyway,
Also
So
look
it's
at it
just
as
on
different.
one side of the street, of
Yeah.
T-side Drive.
that's
Well,
right.
they have that first parcel coming in the T-side as part of that.
That one little
Yeah.
chunk, kind of, yeah. But anyway, the owner of this parcel has requested to annex into the town limits. And of course, the property is bordered by the school district on one side and the golf course on the other. Council is asked to consider whether there is interest in discussing an annexation corridor through the adjacent property to connect the requesting parcel to town limits. So you could do something creative. Across the road is considered contiguous. So you get somebody to, sell you a strip of land. There's ways to go after it. Steve can elaborate on probably some of the ways you can try to be contiguous and try to obtain if they want to come in. If council wants them to come in.
How would we, where's the closest sewer?
So, but they're asking to come into the town, and that's Anderson County Sewer Service Territory, and they know that. They just want to come into the
They
town.
just won't come into town. They want the town services and be a part of that.
But they won't have town sewer.
No,
So what do they get as
They're
far
on
as county
Sandy Springs.
services?
They'll be on Sandy Springs
That's what I
Water.
thought. That's
Yeah,
what I
what
thought.
they get from us would be garbage pickup, police protection.
Is it in the fire district? You
It
go
would
there?
be in fire district, yes. Yeah, it'd be in Pendleton Fire Department's district.
So LaFrance and, you know, I'm not saying that you wouldn't ever get it, because the school was our customer at one point in time, but because we didn't have all of our services built out there, when they had an issue happen, we had to give them to the county. So
When was that?
it was probably 2013, 2014.
Something like that.
Their pump station went down.
Yeah.
And they were using pump trucks to haul, and they had to pump all the way back to Burger King. And it basically came down to what they could afford to build was to build down LaFrance and go to the county's pump station and not build all the way back through and come to Burger King. We didn't have a pump station on that 4016 parcel up there.
So what's the negative of them in it?
I mean, your growth corridors, LaFrance, back to Refuge and around, especially when you start talking about your drainage on the rest of your sewer system coming through. And Anderson Road, old Anderson Road, 76, is probably a pretty important commercial corridor at some point.
That's enough. Answer the
Oh.
question.
There's, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's they have access to sewer, water, so they don't need us for that.
so
It's just,
what do you need us to do
Well,
on this?
for us, it's, it will be, of course, you'll have the revenue from it, and, you're probably gonna have the other traffic and headaches and whatever come along with it either way. So, to me,
They'll probably break the leaf truck out there.
they'll break the leaf truck.
Break the leaf truck.
That's right.
So,
Well, it also creates a little bit of confusion by having those houses on one side that would not be getting that services. Is that correct?
well, it would, but it may also make an incentive that they come in. I mean, at some point,
Yeah.
I think the state's gonna fix the donut hole issue in South Carolina. And I also think at some point, that golf course is probably gonna wanna come in anyway for various reasons. You know, we had the sewer pump station that the northern half of that course needs to go into for a lot of things. But Anderson County's also got a lot of sewer around too.
Yeah.
But we've been talking to them, trying to make some better sewer corridors for everybody, so.
Is the current owner who wants to build it out, or this is just a big spec project?
I don't know, Dave, do you know? It's not,
The call I got was from a realtor representing the developer or the owner, and they would like to come into town for the services, and that's really all they told me. But they're in the very beginning stages of it.
So right now, we just need to decide if we want y'all to continue conversations.
we would
Yeah,
have
we-
to approach the school, we've got to approach.
We don't know that we can get contiguous to it.
Right.
But we would try to, that's all we're saying. Then you can make a decision, I guess, after that, but it's,
So basically, right,
Basically, you would have your zoning apply and your controls, and that would be one of the advantages of it. You'd have some control over what they did there and how it turned out versus it just turns out.
and what you need tonight is for us to approve for council for staff to go ahead and continue conversations.
Yeah, I think
That'd be right.
Okay, well, I make the motion that staff continues conversation on the annexation.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, folks. All right, next we have some action items. We have consideration of town support for unity in the community. And y'all are probably familiar with that and a lot of other people here, but it's proven to be successful, family-friendly gathering that brings residents together. Free food, live music, games, and it hopefully fosters inclusivity and strengthens community ties. The council is asked to approve a minimum level of in-kind support for the event, which is not to exceed $1,500 a year, and to authorize continued approval for future years as long as Pastor Joe Moss remains the event organizer. Additionally, the event will not carry its own liability insurance, which is typical. So recommended action. Staff recommends approval of the requested in-kind support for Unity in the Community with automatic approval in subsequent years, as long as Pastor Joe Lawson again is doing it. So with all that being said, what's council's pleasure?
I just want to comment on that also, though, that the PRA's 5K is that morning, I believe, at that same site.
Mhm.
And they're starting at 8:30 and they're finishing, so they're before, right? 8:30 to, it depends how fast you are, but they're supposed to, should be over by 9:30.
Running, and, we'd probably be, close the business on that day.
You can take a scooter.
Bicycle, maybe. Give you a
Just say how
little.
you get to the end, you just gotta get to the end. But yes, it is.
I do think they're working together.
They are,
They're coordinated.
the gentleman that's, handling that met with, staff, and we were able to formulate a plan. Amber was able to come up with some good ideas, and Lindsay come up with some good ideas to formulate a traffic management plan and stuff like that, and, that will be a staff-heavy event, though, for 4 years. It's gonna take almost all of us, actually, to be able to block all the roads and stuff.
Yeah.
Motion approved?
Second.
Support, whatever it was said.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next we have award a bid for Central Road Pump Station relocation and replacement project. Town council is requested to award the bid for the Central Road Station relocation and replacement project. Recommended bid includes an optional enhancement that provides a reinforced surface to support town vehicles while allowing grass to grow over. This approach ensures vehicle access without the need for a paved driveway, maintaining a natural appearance while preventing ruts and erosion. Approval of this bid will allow the project to move forward with improved functionality and durability for the pump station site. Recommended action is to award the bid to the lowest bidder of Moorhead Construction in the amount of $847,535.40.
Make a motion to accept.
That's including the geotextile map.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, Regine? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. All right, and next we have, discussion here, consideration of first reading of a capital project ordinance, amending ordinance number 22-04.
Yes, I understand.
Doggone it, I knew I was gonna do that. I don't know why. I got out of sync here. Oh,
Just
no.
adding to the April Fool.
No.
Just bang that gavel a few times.
I know, maybe I have.
Forward and
Forward
reverse.
and reverse, yeah, okay. All right, so maybe we want to go to consideration of approving the funding request from the Pendleton Recreation Association. That might be a better idea here. So Pendleton Recreation Association has incurred IRS fines, $4,297.11 due to late filings. If council approves covering this expense, the remaining available funds for expenditure before June 30th, 2025 will be $1,848.72. Recommended action is approval.
Can I state, and this is something I don't think people understand, and especially when money's involved, they want to find a place to place blame. And people need to realize the late filing really has no bearing on the people who are currently doing this. Sometimes you inherit bad doings, and those people didn't necessarily want to do anything bad. It's just stuff that happens. So that being said, I just want it to be known that even though they're late fees for the IRS, I don't think we need to cast blame on anybody. It's one of those things that, happens. So we'll go from there.
I agree with that. The current leadership had nothing to do with this, and they have done an excellent job of trying to keep up with all the
Yes.
paperwork and all the other things they're supposed to do.
And if any of y'all, whether you got kids or not, if you have any experience doing any of this, please reach out to them. You know, we're trying to build a rec association, and most of the people who are volunteering and who are doing it are people who have kids who are in that pipeline. But some of us have nothing in it, but we have that experience, and we know people with experience. So if you know people, kind of direct them that way. I think they'd appreciate it. Now, with that being said, I'll make the motion that we approve this.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Okay.
Are you skipping to adjournment? Okay,
Yeah,
my
does that
bad.
sound good? What do you think? Sound like a winner to you? Okay.
I don't need a lynch mob.
Okay. So anyway, so where we're at now is going to be a resolution of town council of the town of Pendleton, South Carolina, authorizing the investment of funds received pursuant to an interlocal government agreement between the town of Pendleton and Clemson University. So the resolution ensures the responsible investment and use of the funds received from Clemson University, maintaining principal while leveraging interest earnings for future equipment purchases.
Make the motion that we approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. And now we have a new one that I just found out about. So thank you, Abby, for pointing that out to me.
It was on the agenda.
Keeping me straight. Somebody's good. So consideration of a resolution designating April 2025 as Fair Housing Awareness Month in the town of Pendleton. This annual designation reaffirms the town's commitment to the principles of fair housing and equal opportunity for all. Adoption of this resolution is also a compliance requirement tied to federal and state funding sources, including certain grants received by the town. Recommended action is approval, and we have a resolution that's attached to this, which I will not read.
Motion approved.
Okay, and do we have a second over there?
Second.
That was you. Okay, motion second, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Okay. Now, make sure I got my stuff together here. All right, since I'm on my new agenda now, consideration of the first reading of a capital project ordinance for the town of Pendleton, South Carolina, Central Road Pump Station relocation and replacement. So the passage of this ordinance is necessary to carry forward the allocated funding for the project across multiple fiscal years. Council has previously approved the new pump station. Condemnation proceedings are currently underway, and the bid is scheduled to be awarded at April's meeting. Recommended action is approved.
Motion that we approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so now we have consideration of first reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 2204, a capital project ordinance for the town of Pendleton's center parking plan. So I know this has been around and it's back around again. So just wanted to go over this a little bit to let you know, I think, why we're coming back around with it and see what you think. The town center parking plan ordinance requires amendment due to ongoing discussions and modifications regarding improvements to the parking lot behind Brews at the Square. So the information here is to date, $46,000 has been spent on the design work. And per the council's last direction, an estimated $21,000 more would be needed to modify the design. This ordinance amendment also includes the November 2024 estimated cost to complete the project, which is the last estimated cost that we have been able to obtain due to changes in the direction of the project. This amendment ensures funding is budgeted in the fiscal year 2026 budget. Currently, design expenses have been incurred, but no finalized improvement designs exist that reflect the current direction on how to proceed with the parking lot improvements. After discussing with the engineers, we need to develop new drawings that reflect the proposed design while also examining our utilities to ensure we're at correct grades and levels. After examining the current project ordinance and with the amount already expended and the amount still owed on the plan that was tabled while adding in the expense to develop a new plan, our current project ordinance would have been in a deficit. If this project is approved for the first reading, we will follow up with an additional budget amendment transferring $21,000 of the estimated cost expense this budget year for the new design to ensure the fiscal year 2025 budget is balanced and expenses are recognized. So in saying all this, I know we've moved to just pave it, that's good. But when we're doing that, I think there are a few things we need to consider, in my opinion. The current, if we go with the current plan that we had before we tabled it, it's going to accelerate the bidding process, requiring on the completion of design to move forward. And the other thing about it is it complies with existing ordinances and addresses drainage concerns, upgrades utilities, and also addresses lighting. I think it's important to realize that in the UDO, we're wanting to do these things, which would be the landscaping and making things look good. And, we're going to be requiring businesses to do it. So I think we need to be doing it too. And that's just my opinion. I'm not telling y'all how to vote. But
that would mean we vote no on what's on the table tonight, and we activate what was tabled in November.
We didn't table it.
You would need
we said just go ahead and pay it. That's where we were last. But I think we're missing some things by just going ahead and table it. And I wasn't thinking at the time either. I thought that was a pretty good idea. But, we're going to have to pay another $21,000 just to go ahead and pave it. And we're not addressing the landscaping things. We're not addressing the lighting. We're not addressing the drainage. We're really going to have an inferior product, and we're doing something there that we're expecting everybody else not to do. And I just think if we're going to do it, let's do it right.
Well, and I was the one who said, let's put some lines out there and get it going. But here's the thing, I did not realize we had all these things already in the ordinance. And like you say, if we're expecting, people who own businesses to adhere to this, then we as a town need to adhere to it too. So if we got to have a pretty parking space, we got to have a pretty parking space.
Well,
That's what people
Do we
want.
have that? Do we have the plan? Can we see the plan?
I probably have it somewhere.
The
Because
only part of
I
the,
remember that plan still created problems where we were gonna have blocked roads, and we were still gonna have law enforcement involved in getting things towed. We didn't solve that problem that we were looking to solve.
this is
Now,
what we
maybe,
want.
I didn't realize that either. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
well, one of the things I didn't like about what I remember about the most current plan that has the cost estimates that we're talking about going back to was there was a section that was getting into the wine bar parking lot in order to make that sidewalk ADA. I felt like we were adding on to the original scope. I'm sure those are good ideas, but I don't want to get into
So are we going to that plan, or are we going to the plan before that?
So that, the sidewalk down to the wine bar was asked to be added at a council meeting. We brought it back. So we went to the engineers that added it. We went back to the engineers. This is the last thing we did. And we said, what's the options other than going into the wine bar parking lot, which would be narrowing down Queen Street and essentially moving that driveway out there. But they have not changed that on the design yet, because that was not the direction the town was going at the time. But they did say that would possibly work.
So basically what Vince is saying is that there was a discussion of adding, or was there a taking away of a handicap parking space?
The handicap spaces were by Bruce, but the sidewalk in front of the wine bar is so bad that you couldn't push a
Right.
wheelchair or have it in it. It was not level enough for anybody with any kind of disability to walk.
That's correct.
So we would have, that
That would need to be addressed.
That would have to be
And that's
addressed.
what we
If
were
that was
asked.
gonna be the town
Yeah.
handicap spaces.
And that's what we were asked to address, and that's what,
It's addressed.
well, it can be, So if you go back and pave what's there, it's not being addressed.
Okay,
Okay. But we have to match our utilities to grade. So when you don't balance fill that lot, because that lot was being balance filled and a different slope added to it. So all your utilities under there are now designed to something that's not going to be there. And while I don't think we're going to bust grade, we do have to get them back designed. And then you have to get all your materials, quantities, and everything else, because you're bidding this with a utility work. So you're trying to get one contractor to come in, and while we do the utilities, so you're trying to create some economies of scale. So that bid's got to go out as a lump sum bid with everything put in there. That's the trigger for just going to what's there and getting $21,000 upcharged on.
So we need 21,000 in design, no matter what,
No.
to get to that bid.
No, we are with, and I'd have to find it. We are within thousands, or we
Under
have
10.
we are under 10 somewhere in getting out to bid, and probably under 5 in getting out to bid by taking the design and going out to bid. But we have to get back on the design schedule to finalize the bid.
Right.
It was down to picking landscaping, putting in lights where they need to appropriately be, and deciding if we were going to have irrigation in that landscape center island.
but approving this tonight will not get us moving.
Approve if you
we said to go back to the,
plan,
one of the original plans.
yeah,
We can get moving.
you can get moving, and then it can go out to bid. If you want to stay with the parking lot, I've got to add $21,000 into design. But this ordinance accounts for the last cost estimate we have, because I know parking is a concern and we've got to get moving. So this is your capital project ordinance for what we think the cost estimate to do anything is right now. Like, it doesn't matter what y'all go with, it's whatever that ordinance says. That's person a lot doing some other stuff we're doing, and eventually constructing the utilities in the lot. But we think we're close, but we can't get a new estimate until we
You have a
decide
clear direction.
what direction y'all are going.
So if we go with, okay, Vince said it wasn't table, but if we go to I'm gonna say the plan that's been lying dormant, if we activate that, is that gonna be more cost effective than approving what we have here tonight? Will it get us moving?
So the way the secret to reading engineers' task orders, they're generally somewhere between 8 and 11% of what the cost of the project is. So if they gave you a $21,000 order, probably just to change it to what's in place, that is probably somewhere around 190 to 240. The last estimate you had to grade it, because you're getting some of that grading in the utility, right? The last estimate you got to grade it down and construct the parking lot was around
365.
Thank you, 365. But now take that 220, because everything's coming in higher right now, because all the contractor work. Take that 220 and add 76,000 on it, because that's what you're going to pay in design to get what you got right now. So now you're at 300,000.
You're back to where
You're back to where you are.
You might save 30,000.
You might save $30,000 on the parking lot side of it. You're not saving anything on utilities. We're having a hard time getting utility contractors, but even the Winston Street bid, we have 5 show up and only 2 bid. So you also are trying to create a big enough project to pull a contractor in at the same time too.
Okay.
So the two questions are, Lynn's, in regards to the width of the entrance. And is
It's not just
the
the
new
entrance, it's down, I think as you went down and there was an angle so that it was, they were gonna paint yellow stripes, which my experience is nobody in this town pays any attention to, and somebody would park on the yellow stripes, which would then block the.
when you go down to
You
that
would not be
second
able-
level?
Yes.
Yeah, so along that line, asking a question, I guess I'm asking this of Steve. Can that get fixed in that?
5,000.
Without having to have a complete redesign.
Yeah, yeah, that would be my
A
question.
$20,000
Can
redesign.
we work through that?
Ask that question again. What-
Yeah,
In the design, they had all these yellow stripes, like it was just gonna be painted
Inside the parking lot?
inside the parking lot,
To
but
try to deter parking.
to deter, but people were gonna park there because they
Are desperate for
do.
parking.
So I'm pretty sure that's an old plan, and then when we brought that plan to y'all, y'all wanted that change the length, so we took it back. And the one we brought in November, that had been changed to a center median island. And they've got to add the landscaping into it.
Okay,
That
but
was probably prettiest.
and that one, I think there's a space that if a truck parks in going in, they could block the entrance because it did not, at least on the design, appear to be wide enough. But I assume the
sometime we're
engineers would be
gonna have that
measuring that and
downtown.
know,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So back to my question, can we work through that, you think?
In the 5,000.
Well, the second
Yeah.
question is about the ADA compliant sidewalk, and if I remember this discussion, it was about taking 2 parking spots off of Gypsy Wine Bar, right?
Which is
Well,
what,
isn't there, might be a concern there by,
that's what we went back to the engineers about. We haven't had them design an alternate to it yet,
But they had an idea,
But
which
they-
was move it out into the river.
which actually meant better with your pedestrian plans, because you would have ended up with 1 or 2 bump outs right there where your existing crosswalk is.
Instead of feeling like
Yes.
you're gonna get run over.
You would've-
Where the road
yeah.
widens out.
You would have shrunk that down and moved their driveway into that shrunken part of it.
so we're,
To Frank's question.
So
can
back to
we
my
get it
question, can we
done
get
for
there?
the-
Can we get
5 or
that? Can we work
6
through
thousand.
those problems? That's my question, and still do the
November.
parking lot right and make it look like it should and be lighted like it should, because we want people to feel safe when they're walking. And, this is, fix the drainage issues. We're doing all this, spending lots of money. I mean, can we do that? If we can't, we can't, but I mean, that'd just be my picture of utopia for the parking lot.
For $20,000, I'm sure we can.
Yeah, well, I'm sure for some amount we can, but I guess Steve is thinking over here because he's looking at.
Well, I've got the plan.
Yeah, but I think-
Have the plans you want.
I think that we need to make sure that these 2 issues are addressed.
November, go to November.
And if we can go back to the November plan and address
November,
these issues,
5th, I'm sorry.
address these issues in the November plan and go ahead and get that one passed so we can get moving on this parking
I'm
lot.
in Granicus, that's where I found it the fastest. Go to,
But you need your,
I was gonna see if you can put it up there.
my Granicus isn't working, so I've been using her computer.
It's okay, it's fine, 'cause I don't.
I have a
can't get it on the
nitpicky
screen.
thing, which is,
Give me just a
I wish
sec.
this was called the town center parking and utility plan, because almost half of the budget is going, or more than half is
More than
going
just
to
the
the
parking lot.
utility.
No, you're right, it is.
So I don't want people to be like, we're paying $1 million for a parking lot.
Well, it's something that, like you say, it is both, and it is something that's a big improvement there. I mean, any way you look at it, it's something that's gonna be there for a long time. And that's why I'd like to
You
say,
want the wine bar entrance.
let's
one.
do it right. I mean,
No,
even
go
if we
to,
have
go to the
spend
main
more
plan and go to C 3.0.
and just get moving, let's do it. That's me, you guys.
So I think they've addressed whatever question you were asking Lynn in this one. There's a bump out in a tree planting area at the top where they go under the driveways over there, where they park all the time and block it. So it takes away that. And then,
Say that again?
You want to come over here and look at his screen?
Yeah. there it
Because you're
is.
the one that really knows what we're talking about.
It
Is that
takes away the
Okay.
block. This takes away the block that you're concerned about.
So if you scroll down a little bit, no, you just have to,
I can't see. There's one.
oh, right above, there's a call out tie to existing curb right there at the top.
All the way at the top.
No, right there.
Right there.
You don't have to move off this plane once it comes up. You see that call out tie to existing curb,
Peninsula.
that peninsula, so they moved that peninsula out and eliminated that parking space
Okay.
that was there. And now it's just an aisle that comes up, and then you physically have to turn and go out at that point.
Okay. And what's gonna keep people from parking there?
Well, hopefully, so unfortunately, Brews has that drive-through right there.
Uh-huh.
So we really can't block that, but we have it lined as good as we can up there. And they may at some point have to make a decision on if they extend the curb or something on theirs and decide they're not gonna have it, but they have a drive-through right
Just bring
now.
it back here,
So
make
what,
it tighter.
No, they would
well,
come
right where your
straight
arrow
across.
is, I think people are gonna park
Right.
right
Right
in there.
Yeah.
And eventually that, I mean, I don't know what's gonna keep them from doing that.
I mean, we could slant that curve from back of curve to front of bump out at more of an angle, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then you're just adding more planting area in there, and it takes away that
Parking spot.
takes away that parking spot even more.
Make it where it's obvious.
Yeah.
Cause you fit nice.
Okay, so down there where the 3 is, the space just above that. Now, if I park my Ford 350,
Yeah.
are you gonna, is that, we're measuring that to make sure that you can still get out
Well,
or get by there?
so I can tell you, what's in the 11 and 12 you can. The 3, the area over there at 3 is built for us to bring a garbage truck down and collect out the back. The 3s, anything, we might have to get to where we restrict some of those bigger trucks. in
Compact
here.
cars.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you go in a parking garage and it'll say compact cars only.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that just don't need to be there.
But-
I know, but I've also
But I know
probably
what you're
seen
saying.
the big old.
Yeah, but you've got to realize something, Lynn. You can put up whatever you want there. There's some fool gonna park there anyway. So I don't care what you do. So the reality of it is,
At some point, it's gotta be good enough.
Yeah.
yeah, and because you can't predict crazy.
Yeah, crazy does happen.
There's a wild card in every bit.
Yeah, it is one.
So
And it ain't the joker.
the wine bar, which is at the top, and you go up, I was trying to find, so that's all new sidewalks down to where we did the original sidewalks, did Exchange Street. You see there's approximate delineation for parallel parking up there. That wine bar slope would come further out in the Queen Street, which is what the last thing the engineers have to look at, where that lands at that point. If Scott still, and he does still, because he said it, he still wants an entryway there into that wine bar, you would move that out further somehow.
Do we have to get DOT approval for that?
That's all city road. So,
But it would make those parallel parking go away on the other side of the road.
I don't know.
Right, but potential.
I mean, they're probably looking at trying to split the difference,
Right.
on it. So,
This is a challenging site.
So are those 2 are in front of the Mercantile or that's down in front of the Quiris?
I think it's front of Carl's house.
oh, that's in front of Carl's house.
Right.
So
You'll see them.
So those are not really marked, are they?
they're not, but they park all the way down there. So we've added bump outs on either side. We've added that one bump out up there to try to stop them from parking down to Carl and Chris Murray's house and delineate where 3 of them can park. Because if you went up there right now, it's very likely they're parked wheels up on that hill right now, going in something. So
If it's trivia night.
It's trivia.
it is trivia night now.
Oh, that's right, it's
So those bump outs are there number one, they're intended to stop them. Number 2, they're intended to delineate parking. But they're also there because they do create some pedestrian safety. They do narrow down the road more. They do slow traffic down through there. So, you know, it's part of what we need to be doing elsewhere on down through Queen and Maine and everywhere else.
All right, and all of these bump outs will be planted, or are we just gonna have dirt like we do in some of our other ones?
It has the landscaping markings on them right
We
now.
might have to kick
Um,
it to the garden club the way this budget is going.
I would tell you, we need to talk about how we want to plant those because they are very, they get to be very small on some of these and they do better with probably boxwoods or something. These look like they look like they're about 10 feet long on the back and they're on a 10-foot radius. They're probably about 10 feet out and 10 feet long. So, you know, you probably don't want a tree in there, but you can probably get flowers or something.
All right, and let's go back, can we go down to the bottom, so it's designed so the trash truck, the garbage truck can come in and go all the way out, or it's circling around?
It comes in, it circles around the same way. It goes down and comes around and then back up and out.
And who's driving?
Willie.
You better hope, Willie.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Willie's good.
Not much traffic back there in the morning, so let's just
Oh,
get
yeah,
ready to
it's
go early in the morning.
If we make a motion, we're gonna try to refer to this plan in particular.
The November plan.
You can refer to,
And how many parking spaces does this give us?
But I really do think we want to make sure we're addressing the concerns with that and we can work through it or something.
Yeah, if we can just ask the engineers one more time to look at their numbers.
Yeah.
But we don't need to start anew. We just need to move.
So we can authorize staff to work within a minimal design budget to update this plan so that it can get out to bid.
So we can get ideas and we can, I think that's
think
address the
so, too.
concerns.
All right, I make that motion.
And just want to confirm that does resolve all the utility issues at the same time. So water
Yeah,
and sewer.
yeah.
And we're
everything
gonna
is-
change how we're talking about this, that is the town center parking and utilities
Utilities.
plan.
This isn't addressing all our parking needs, and we're gonna continue to look for more options around the town square.
Sure.
But this just gets bruised, put to bed.
And how many
So-
spaces did you say we were adding?
I think it's like 44, 54.
I think you're right. When I was going back to my emails looking for it, I'd asked and they could answer. I'm pretty sure he said 44.
I mean, you still have, I will say this, we know moving down Queen Street, you still have plenty of parking down there. You just got to finish the construction on Queen Street. So, and it would start delineating parking down through there.
So we have a motion from Vince
Second.
and Amber, you got that?
Yes,
started?
sir.
Okay. And we-
Got it.
I
So-
heard you typing while I was
It's okay. So you got everybody.
mumbling.
Okay, so we got a motion and we have a second. All right, so all in favor? Raise your hand. Motion carries. Unanimous. Okay. Thank you, folks.
If 44 people all spend $50, it's like,
Yeah,
$2,250.
it'll come back eventually. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. All right, so.
That's just between 6:30
And
and
we
7.
turn the parking lot just like we turn the restaurants, and everybody is spending that money.
Yeah,
Gotta turn those tables.
That's right.
Or shoot, let them buy the parking lot.
yeah, that's right.
I
So,
mean, buy the parking space for each individual.
yeah,
Do we get a cut of the towing now that we've redone our,
Ordinance.
Oh, you have to ask the police chief on that.
yeah, that's a question for Robbie and
Yes, sir.
I filed my ethics statement.
Yeah. Same
we
here.
want to know we get a cut on the towing.
You can get my
That is
portion.
actually taking up state
Well, I don't personally, I don't
Yes,
personally,
that's the tow rate.
no, I don't, I'm
This is
asking to
just
help.
part of an elaborate April Fool's, am I right?
April Fool's.
I'm not asking for it. I'm trying to offset the cost of the parking lot.
Yeah, in the town.
Okay. Well, Jeff volunteered to be the municipal tow truck driver.
All right, well, having said all that, I'm gonna move on
My
to
neighbor.
consideration of first reading of an ordinance to amend the budget, Town of Pendleton fiscal year 2024-2025 to recognize additional revenue and appropriate funds for investment purposes. Town has received 1.4 million per the intergovernmental agreement with Clemson University. This budget amendment will recognize the revenue and allocate the funds as an expense to be transferred into the town's investment account. This action ensures proper accounting and management of the funds in alignment with the town's financial policies. Motions are,
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
okay, have a motion second, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next we have consideration of second and final reading of an ordinance to amend ordinance 2405, an ordinance to set Town of Pendleton's budget fiscal year 2024-2025. This will be second and final reading of this ordinance. The amendment is required to move the $300,000 allocated to the Cheney Mill infrastructure agreement to the fiscal year 24-25 budget for payment. The agreement requirements have been met and the town must now process the payment. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion second, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. All right, now we've got consideration of second and final reading of an ordinance establishing a project ordinance for the planning and initial implementation of greenways in the town of Pendleton, South Carolina, and other related matters. At the February regular session meeting, town council directed staff to allocate funding for greenway development in Pendleton. The second final reading of this ordinance is scheduled for tonight's meeting. One thing I'd like to say about this, I was confused. I didn't know the difference between a greenway and a trail. And Nancy kindly took me for a walk and educated me to what a trail was. And it's a lot of difference in a trail and a greenway, because I was over at Unity Park the other day and I discovered what a greenway was. And it was really big and fancy and nice. And you could, push your
And
child in the
expensive.
stroller. And it looked like it cost a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. So,
Give me a minute, I'll pick out the nicest thing.
so I was just thinking, I know it's dangerous when I start thinking. So sometimes I have to have somebody like Lynn over while I go straighten me out and keep me straight. But I started thinking, well, we had sort of looked and got a quote from Alliance to start engineering this thing and looking at it from what we kind of thought it was, but it was, I think, in the neighborhood of $60,000. So when I was talking to Nancy and walking through there, it just hit me that this is not that complicated and there's not that much to this. It's just a trail. And I use the term, which we probably shouldn't use this, but I use this term pig trail. So that some people might have heard that one. It kind of goes way back. But so also, Nancy put together some information, gave to me, which was real nice of her again. And just that, we'll call it the haul trail, assuming that's what it gets called at some point. To really do what we want to do, the haul trail, and I added up, and I tried to take the conservative side of it, and it ends up being about $7,500 for that part. That's pretty close, right? I added up what she had there, which I think you can just go in there and do it yourself. I mean, we were kind of talking about, we could just go in here with a few volunteers and spread the mulch, and here we are. And I've gotten some input from certain people, one of them being, some people have indicated, like John Gumford has indicated, it's kind of an amenity for him. What he's considering is downtown's an amenity, because he can say, you can come here, you've got the downtown over here, and you've got this, and you've got that.
He wants to pay for the mulch?
He wants to pay for, he wants to give some money for a lot of things and maybe even help the foundation and everything else. So, that's kind of a good thing. So I thought, well.
But there won't be any lighting.
Did you say lighting?
Well,
It will be just a nature trail.
Right.
I guess.
Did you say lighting?
Well, that's a great question.
I didn't hear you. I'm dead serious. You said there won't be no lighting?
Correct.
Okay.
That's
I
one
just
of
didn't
the,
hear. That's
I
all.
think that's one of the differences between the trail and the greenway.
And maybe at some point it could be lighting. I don't know. But
maybe we'll.
what I
hand
don't
out
know about
flashlights.
this, I sell appliances.
Well, couldn't you do, and
I'm
I'm
not a
asking,
trail guy.
well, I guess I can't ask you, but couldn't you do like solar mounted lights out there?
I mean, depending on how far in the woods you are.
No, I mean, some type, I mean, we don't have to jump into immediately,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying to get
Phase
something.
two.
Yeah, well, now, so I had an idea, and I ran it by Steve, and he actually thought I had a decent idea for a change. He didn't shoot me down on it. But, so my idea was, if we have some volunteers and we create a 501c3, or maybe we use a 501c3 that already exists, maybe it's a foundation, maybe it's somebody else, maybe it's whoever's on pride, I don't know, whoever. But we get a 501c3, and instead of sending this money to Alliance for some study, we send this money directly to the people that can get it done and go ahead and do it and not go through all the engineering study and all that, just go out there and build this trail. Now, maybe that works, maybe it does, but
Well,
that's my thought,
vision of the
okay?
56,000 was that we were gonna get some kind of plan for a townwide trail. Not built, just to
Yeah,
design.
great point.
So I would like the 56 to stay for
Yeah,
design.
But we already have a townwide trail, do we not?
not really. We don't.
But we have a perimeter trail.
But going back to another one here, this is more information from Nancy, some of them. Okay, but I guess Nancy and Jeff walked the trail the other day. That would have been the Pendleton Library to the Silver Springs Baptist Church on town easements, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I added that up too. Okay, so we got approximate cost from Nancy on doing that. All right, which if you add all that up and you'd be pretty conservative about, so I went high on what we think, but we don't know exactly, of course, but that would come to about $50,000. That would be a more expensive endeavor. But still, if you take 56,000 and we're talking about 57.5, we're not that far off. And if we can get some more
I'm trying
money.
to get Jay that deforester anyway, so he can make mulch as he goes.
So I'm gonna circle back around to my thought about the 2016 plan, which to me, I'm taking back what I said about that to an extent, because I don't think it's really fits in with that plan, because that was about greenways. I mean, it's really talking about greenways, and that's just not what we're talking about here. I think, we can, we can just build trails and connect with Green Crescent anywhere we want to. We can build trails all over the place. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm 100% in support of all that. I think though, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to have a work session either with us or with various groups to, first of all, get the jargon down so we all understand what we're talking about, because what's the difference between a nature trail versus a greenway and all that, and then get that map figured out. Because when we talk about a circle route, we talk about this. We haven't talked about getting across 76, and that part of town needs to be included.
Well, that's right. Yeah,
And,
you're right.
and right now it's not.
Right.
So
Right.
we talk about a crossway at Queen and in 76. We got one at Westinghouse. We just want to have interconnectivity across the width of the town. And there's just a lot of different factors on the other side of 76 that we haven't even discussed. So it'd be nice to have either a work session with us or get a bigger group of people that we can sit there and get all the jargon down and get that plan, because we can figure it out. We don't have to go pay someone to do it. And I think that's what we seem to be agreeing.
So what you want to do is kind of put this on hold and have the work session.
I think that the haul trail's there. I mean, be honest with you, you could go out Silver Springs. I know Nancy's gonna start laughing. You can right there, and you walk out about a mile. There's a pond with a beaver dam and everything else out there. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it would take nothing at all. We'd have to get permission through
You still got to get
Millikins and a private owner and the church.
Right.
But nonetheless, there's different things you could do that are available, and we can figure it out. I agree with the mayor 100% that we can figure this out ourselves, not waste the money on someone else doing it. But again, sometimes we say different things and it means different things to different people.
Yeah, I think
Get
it'd
the
be
jargon
an
down
ongoing
and then get a plan.
I mean,
The idea was to have some seed money. I have a larger question, which I hope we get to in the budget session on the 16th, about the way communities are using these trails is touching on business development. It's not strictly an amenity. It's not strictly a mode of transport. And it's, again, part of an economic driver also. So I think it's, to Lynn's point, and for myself, when this conversation came up, we had allocated money in last year's budget to start on this. And then now we're looking at next year's budget. I think it would be good to have the money set aside because, hey, we need to talk to the lawyer about this easement that we can spread the mulch a little bit further, or we need to do a survey and then the lawyer. Hey, as we're identifying it, we have something to go to draw down on in order to keep the momentum going.
I agree with you
So
there. You know,
Steve, do we have to have the survey or something if we're going to be crossing private owner's property to say this is where we want the easement to happen? Because I think you're going to have the recreational easement on it. And my understanding is you can't, it's not the building of the trail, but to get to say this is where we're crossing your
That's a-
property, you have to have the survey, and that's the reason I like the survey.
And you have
So-
to have permission.
I agree with Lynn.
I agree.
And I hear what you're saying, Jeff. When you get us involved, it goes to a different level. If you want to cut a mulch trail across somebody's property, you better have done all the planning in the back. So when you, there's a reason for staff or volunteers to be approaching this person, asking for an easement that council's going to back up and provide the money because they're not free. You tend to have to pay them, provide the money to pay it. Also, there's legal liabilities gets transferred when we do our job correctly in planning that protects the property owner, which is why you need that planning and you need those surveys and everything else, because the width of that survey, when it's planned correctly, the property owner doesn't have liability under the ag rules. And so when you get out there, and when Frank was talking, and I did talk to the attorney about, if you had a 501c3 and you're funneling the money through them on some of these smaller trails, you don't have, quote unquote, a famous thing in the news today, big government behind them. Plus, if that property owner and that 501c3 decide they want to move the trail, it's not an act of council.
Yeah, now in this
So
scenario,
that's where your
just to be clear, make
set
sure,
aside money we go.
I understand what you're saying. In this scenario, the people
You
getting
know, I
the
mean, that's what I'm
easement
saying. That
and the
could be
permission
set aside.
and all of that, that would be Nancy or whoever the group is.
With their seed money.
Me, if I'm a part of it, I mean, it would be those people doing
Yeah.
those
That
things, right?
sounds great.
And
Okay, I
then,
understand.
we're doing the heavy lifting on the back by doing the planning and everything else that gets it started. Because when we put something out there, there's going to be more of a permanency to it. Now, if you wanted to go down in Village Hills where we own a lot of acres that's completely town owned and say, I hate to keep using Nancy, but I'm gonna keep using Nancy as, say we just told Nancy, go build pathways to your heart's content. That's town-owned property, so we're not having to deal with any other property owner. Transferring easements and transferring
That's a lot
rights and
easier,
transferring
yeah.
liability and everything else. And so, you can go back once you do all that pre-planning. And if you want to do a mulch trail some way and you had it laid out, you have exemptions as a city to have ADA compliant stuff and have non-ADA compliant stuff.
So would the 501c3 then be participating in the planning? They would, part of our agreement with them would be, this is the planning process?
Yeah, I guess it'd be sort of like we do with PRA, we kind of give them the money, they're
No,
set
they-
to the entity, but we're funneling money to them to say, here, go ahead. But along that line too, the question in my mind would be, it's something that would be really good that council's doing here for everybody and benefiting our citizens. Do we receive, can we put a sign up, for instance, that says sponsored by the town of Pendleton, or we were a contributor, or, I think we want some recognition out of it, that we're putting out $57,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah, but the other thing is
Right.
being able to have the 501(c)(3) and it not necessarily being all on staff and council. You get buy-in from your community, which in turn allows you to get people who will do the upkeep. And once, you get the buy-in and the ownership, so to say, you're gonna get more people who are, right, more help. And also, maybe you get people who are like, oh, I'm okay with them cutting across mine. So, it kind of starts
See how it is.
yes, it starts that ball is rolling in the right direction.
Yeah.
But it's also not the government coming.
Right,
to take it.
right.
But it's one of those things where they can test it with that 501c3. If they say go away,
If they hit a roadblock.
they hit a roadblock. But if they might come and transfer those exact same things that 501c3 is built to the town. That's how the Carolina Thread Trail that I was around when we started the exact same, but it's a 501c3 doing it. And now the cities and counties have come in and started building on the Carolina Thread Trail.
Once the proof of concept.
Once the proof of concept, but you don't have them coming in first hand. But it's two different things. Like there's a need of this council, and it's probably warranted to update the greenways and look at some of this stuff and bring them in. And then there's a need for instant action.
Mm-hmm.
And we may not be the boat for instant action.
So along that line, I mean, would this be something we can kind of, however we approach this with this reading here or not, what do we do? That, take the Hall Trail, it seems to me like that's something, somebody could just go ahead and be starting getting going on.
Is that a separate funding?
I mean, I think it's part of all the fun. I mean, to me, I can see this being an ongoing thing to where, like Jeff says, eventually you're able to get these trails put in everywhere. And some may be harder than others and more expensive.
So a lot
than
of that
others.
trail is on the sewer easement, which needs to be cleared of trees. So you're saying the town would take on that responsibility and clear those trees?
Well, if you had a 501c3, you'd just pay them to do it.
Yeah.
They also
And the
requested
town
the
would-
ADA compliant. That was a request
Yeah,
by someone.
so
from
part of
the
that, I was
society.
talking about a while
So that's
ago,
where you get
what
into
Nancy put on
what
here.
we're having to
Improve
design.
existing routing, but getting overhanging and dangerous trees on the ground, you put $3,500, $5,000. I put $5,000 down for that, because tree work's always
So
more
that's what
expensive than you
I
think.
hear that.
Uh,
So that's our
and,
problem. Like
You know,
when we
no,
say it's
this
gotta
work's
be
being
88, it
donated
takes
and
us
covered by
a whole-
hurricane recovery
You know,
grant.
we're
Right.
the
Not
claimant.
doing that. Okay, so that's somebody jumping in to
Yeah,
help.
I've heard
No
the same-
cost of the
same thing.
trail projects, grading and widening of the existing route, Nancy had $1,000, I'd say, yeah. Possible reroute parallel to Cherry Street to town easement, grading along the route, $300 in there. So you can go on and look at this, what she's got. So that's a relatively inexpensive project there compared to the other one, which is Library to Silver Springs. And then maybe another one that ends up being on the other side of town over there, what Jeff's talking about. But I don't see why it can't be an ongoing thing if you got.
Right.
I guess I'm just wanting to make sure that that the nonprofit or anybody can go in there and do work on the easement. And if something hits and we hit a manhole or we do damage, is that create a problem? And my other question is the town willing to put the recreational easement on top of that trail for any nonprofit?
So talking to the attorney, if it was a nonprofit dealing with the property owner, the property owner gets to use the utility as their property so long as they don't interfere with the utility. Utility can only use it to run utility. So the 501c3, if they're dealing with property owner and we give explicit permission for them to deal with our utility and the property owner does, so there doesn't have to be a recreation easement at that point. They got the right
They
to
got
be.
their own right.
They got their
Private
own
right.
private rights. That 501c3 may have to have insurance to identify that property owner, which is what we by law cannot do, which is why we have to do it through getting the proper
So-
recreation easement.
Is that in that cost, I mean, you're saying the town could then help offset that insurance cost?
You could, I mean, you're,
You're subsidizing
You're-
this whole organization.
yeah, just like you're doing the
But they
PRA.
could raise their own money
They
too.
can raise their own money. They can do things without even involving the town.
Maybe it could even be multiples, 501c3s.
It can
Could
be
it
multiple.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this could be the historic foundation for the Hall Trail, and maybe somebody else could be a different one. I don't know. I just
But one of the things, you know, when we form,
might be asking David Root.
well, I think when we form the 501(c), one of the things we don't need to do, we don't need to have 5,000 volunteers coming in saying that's theirs. That should be an entity in and of itself, if I'm making sense. So if it's going to be, you know, Nancy's Trails, then that's what it is, Nancy's Trails. And if another group wants to come in, fine, let them do theirs. But I think this will allow, like I said, buy-in from the community, and it gets them doing
It's a
something.
lower barrier of entry for
True.
people that are
True.
excited about this
True.
and want to go ahead and take action. And it's a way for us to support them in the early days.
Yeah. I agree.
And it's also a way,
How do we
and
get
which is
that
something
into
we
a
don't really
motion?
look at, is for
Okay,
Okay,
people.
but I still want to go back. Are we going to do the master plan for the whole town? Or are we just talking about now not doing that? I think it's real important to get the master plan.
I want to put that in this year's budget. But
You know, the master plan or the other thing?
I feel like these,
I mean, we're doing the budget right now, so if y'all want the master plan funded in the budget and this go to something else, or this funded the master plan and something else, all y'all gotta do is tell me.
You know, the thing about the trails though, you know, you want to sit there and try to figure out where they would spring up right now. I mean, it just seems like you're going to see them pop up in places. You're going to have people. What do you think, Nancy? I was going to ask you right now. You got a lot of experience here.
Well, I think we already have 501(c)(3) called Pendleton Pride in Motion, and getting a new 501(c)(3) right now with the condition of the things that are changing in the federal government is going to be a very lengthy process.
Right.
That I think we're best to leverage the organizations we already have. And the Pendleton Pride in Motion already incorporates a lot of the existing organizations like Friends of the Park, the Recreation Association, the Historic Foundation, the Black History Foundation. Is already meeting with those people, so I think that's a natural 501(c)(3).
Okay.
I think that you're right, I think they're gonna pop up over town. I think each developer will have a trail as you guys set down the policy for that, and as UDO sets down the policy for that. If you request that developer to include a trail, if you request, you know, the person doing the chain mill to do a bridge to connect to the historic foundation is something you want them to do, you can make that happen, and then I think we can do a lot of this organically. But I think as it gets bigger and bigger and gets more and more traffic, at that point in time, we might want to formalize it more, right? But I like the idea of putting up some signage so that citizens recognize that the town of Pendleton supports this and encourages health and well-being of its citizens, and they support that through the funding of the trails. And the other thing we have, I forget, is we have the heritage trails that you've already built. And that's walkways on sidewalks. That's another kind of trail. With tourist information and a map on the history of the town. We already have those.
Mhm.
Let's leverage that.
Yeah. And then we got to make sure that everybody knows they're open to the public. I mean, they got to be open to everybody. We can't-
Absolutely.
Right.
So you mentioned the 2016 plan. Is that what the comprehensive plan that Vince is talking about?
that was a biking and pedestrian,
Yes,
Right.
definitely.
bikeability, walkability.
I don't know that it's worth spending the money to integrate it into that.
They weren't looking at the
That's-
sewer easements. and
I
that.
just think we need to do whatever we can do to get this to where we can move forward with the paths. And like Nancy said, if that means, you know, if we've already said do the 501(c), but like Nancy says, right now, that's a crapshoot. You already got something there that can be the umbrella with the Pendleton Pride in Motion. And right now, if you put anything, if there's a women's group or if there's a African American Council, if you put that in there as part of it, it's gonna get shot down anyway. We know that. So we have something in place as a vehicle to drive this. And I said, let's
How
drive it.
much are we gonna spend out the gate with Pendleton Pride in Motion?
Pardon, Vince?
Of
Well-
the 56.
Yeah, well, I think you just start with the Hall Trail and just try to, do it, whoever it ends up being. And I guess that organization
So
would
you
have,
guys are gonna come back to us with
the organization would have to vote to do it, I'm sure, say we're gonna do this.
Just for a little bit, let's not start.
Yeah, let's just do one thing at a time.
Okay.
Well, I mean, your 501c3
But the
is gonna
money
have to
stays
vote,
there set aside.
and your two owners, the Baptist Church and the Historic Foundation, and a couple of meetings ago, we said that there was word that they weren't interested in doing that. So we'll need to get that confirmation back from that organization as well.
That's right.
So I still would like to go with my suggestion that 56 that's currently budgeted goes to come up with a master plan, and that in compliance with the strategic plan that says build connections through services, places, and transportation options,
Mhm.
walking or cycling being one of those,
Mhm.
then let's look at how we can fund nonprofits to start getting the trails.
Can we call it
And the new
trails
budget.
instead of greenways in here?
We can call it trails or
So-
greenways and trails, because
Okay.
I want to go with the plan that in there, one for going down Mechanic, and in that a greenway.
yes.
And I want to be able to connect the trail to that greenway, so I want to make sure that we're incorporating
That's what
both,
Yeah, I see where you're
Projects.
going.
or both
So
avenues,
we want to add trails to this, greenways and trails.
greenways
Yes.
and trails.
Right? Does that make sense, everybody?
That gives us more flexibility.
We're spending $56,000 for what? What we,
To
Well-
get a master, I mean, this is my
to
vision,
pay Alliance?
to pay Alliance or somebody to look at and give us a bird's eye view of where all we can put trails.
Why? But we
Well-
already know where we can put trails, because isn't that what we're doing anyway, going
Well,
the
and that, you know,
easements
what
that
the
we already own?
501c3 is going to be doing a little bit of time. And that's sort of the way I saw it, I'm going to rather spend that money. That way we can take this money and spend it directly on doing something and get it done. At least try that. Let's just try it on the one. It's not bad. Let's just see where it goes.
And I think it's sometimes
We
that's
still
what we
keep
need
the
to
money
do,
sitting
see where it
there. Yeah, we
goes.
I
have-
feel
and
like
then
we
go from
have
there.
an opportunity with.
I mean, we still want the money set aside.
I think we're in this budget year. If you want to walk away from this project ordinance, we've got to get it into the budget for this fiscal year.
You mean,
So
To me, the wording of the master plan, if we're trying to be more organic about how the trails come together, I would much rather put the real planning money through the planning department into linking it up with alternative transport, some of our pressures with parking, those type of other things that are, to me, are priorities going into this budget. There again, business development. It's like, this could be, as the trails start to seed, I want to see the bigger picture of it coming together. I mean,
yeah, Pendleton Pride, there might be another nonprofit that wants to connect the Food Lion and the sewer line behind there over to
right, the
Champions
the
Village
Commerce
Hill,
Park.
so that there's another nonprofit. But if we don't have a master plan of how these things are gonna connect, I'm afraid we're gonna end up with just a hodgepodge of walking paths.
But, man, you might be right, but I mean, also, I think she can help figure that out.
But I also think that Nancy's not saying other nonprofits can't come in, basically, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Your Pendleton Pride and in motion, that would be the group that other nonprofits come to and say. And I think that's something we need to look at. I think that y'all have enough wherewithal that you know where things can go and they should go. And I think that y'all have an overall idea at this particular point in time. And if it's not covering the whole town, there's a portion, and maybe we can do different portions. But I don't think that what we're saying, or what from what I have gathered and envisioned from what we've discussed on a 501(c) being monitored, or being the vehicle being the Pendleton Pride in Motion, I don't think that that's going to deter us from going forward as much as having all these different plans and every little nitpicky thing. I just think we need to be a little bit more organic And if we need to go back and bring it to where it's under the control of council, we can do that.
I think this is pretty broad, the way the ordinance is. We could go ahead and seed the money out through this project
And see
to
how it
the
goes.
501c3, and we'd still have some money left to start with the plan.
Yeah.
It's in there.
I'm good
And
with
if we want to glom it on with some bigger plan,
So
then
be
it's
it.
already still in
It's
there.
already still
It's
in
already
there.
in there. So I make a motion, we approve the project ordinance. And I like all these other ideas too. Jeff says we should have a
Greenways and trails. We want to.
greenways and
I
trails,
think we need to have
a work session.
Definitely need to have a work session.
Yeah, because there is in the uptown, there's, Spartanburg talks about working with nonprofits, so it might be that we can glean some information from them as well on how they've done their trips.
And I think that once we have the work session, a part of the work session need to be, identify what we got, see
Okay.
what we got.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimous. All right. That was a great discussion too. I appreciate everybody on that. It was good. It was a good meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
And don't you say April Fools, I will tackle you. Go ahead. I
I
second.
make a
He
motion.
made a motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. We're adjourned.
Say April Fool's bits, I wanna
Thank
see
you,
it.
everybody. Have a great discussion. I enjoyed it.
I'm trying to stay out of the MMA pit.